I used to believe that I needed to suffer a lot to make good art, and now I'm in recovery. I know that that's not true, and a lot of the myths that are spread around being a tortured artist or a tortured musician or any kind of creative person who has this kind of tortured streak in them, I find really unhelpful. Not only for me, but for the vast majority of people out there as well who are creative, who struggle with addiction. I really, this whole idea that you need to suffer to make good art is just totally wrong. I think addiction really fed that belief for me. When I was in active addiction, I was led by that sort of lie that I'd told myself, and the lie that the mythology of the art world had told me, I guess, as an impressionable young person. Getting into recovery changed that. 5 years later, I don't have those beliefs at all. They're still alluring sometimes. Sometimes I still feel a little bit of like a pull towards that chaotic, tortured artist lifestyle. But it's not real, it's a myth. It's been mythologized by society and by film, music, industry, university as well, and I'm going to touch on all these things in this video. It really matters because this myth is totally romanticized by society, but it's incredibly toxic. It convinces us artists that self-destructive behavior is noble when it's actually quite the opposite, really. It puts us in a position where instead of being able to give of ourselves freely, give us to ourselves and to give ourselves to other people, to be of service, to be, a participating member of society, it left me isolated, it left me lonely, it left me wondering what the hell was going on, and a lot of my heroes that I looked up to turned out to be mentally ill, suicidal, death by overdose, drug overdose, or if they did live to an older age, the lives were just punctuated by misery, torture, and depravity, and that's not being extreme, it's just a bit of the truth, to be honest. Most of my heroes were in the 27 club, so they died when they were 27. Obviously, me being ill in addiction, I never put those two and two together, and I never realised what an awful thing that really was. And now I'm 32 years old, I can't even imagine having died at 27. It's a crazy thought, really. But when I was 18, 19, that whole lifestyle seemed so appealing to me. But I really want to make a point of the fact that, for every one person who reaches some kind of creative stardom, whether it's in the music industry or the art industry or the writing or acting industry, there'll be one person for every 10,000. So one Amy Winehouse, there'll be 10,000 other addicts who have great talent who never make it because of their addiction. For the one Francis Bacon in the art world, there'll be 10,000 others like him who couldn't get on top of the mental health, had a lot of issues throughout the youth, trauma, abuse, whatever it might have been. And these success stories, I think, they're really kind of like lottery ticket winners. The idea that to pursue this kind of lifestyle will initiate some kind of success is really wrong, I think. And I know I can say that with confidence because for a long time I acted as though being completely hedonistic, completely self-absorbed in this partying, addictive lifestyle was the key to my success as an artist, and actually it was the key to my own self-destruction, really, and I think it is the key to a lot of other people's self-destruction as opposed to their creative success. So I don't think it's really advisable to pursue this way of life, and it's not just wrapped up in addiction, but it's wrapped up in this whole mental health space as well. About Van Gogh, for example, is a great one. This tortured artist is only appreciated after his death, and led a very unhappy life, never sold anything, and instead of really thinking about what his life must have been like, how lonely it must have been, how hard it must have been, what a struggle it must have been, he's kind of put on a pedestal as being like, we mythologize him, and we create this kind of narrative about what it means to be a creative person, what it means to be an artist. You necessarily need to be mentally ill, you need to be a total loner, a sort of exterior to the rest of society. And I think the antidote to that really is community, it's connection with other like-minded people. And truthfully, I'm someone who has mental health problems, I'm someone who's suffered with addiction, I'm someone who has struggled with their creativity and struggled with self-isolation, and all the negative things that get packaged up into this tortured artist, neatly. But the key for me has been connecting with other people like that. It's not denying that those things are a reality, but it's connection, and I think really that's just the top and bottom of it. Connection is key. I think I first internalised this myth from a variety of places, which I touched on earlier. The culture tells us this all the time, that to be a successful artist or musician, you've got to be off your face, you've got to use loads of drink and drugs, you've got to party all the time, and it's a very tempting way of life. Peers, and I'm not saying I wasn't one of those who instigated the negative behaviours, but they say that you are a sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so when I was at university, at art school, and even at college before that, and my life after university when I was in active addiction, I always chose to associate with the kind of chaotic and crazy people, but in a negative way, and my aim now is to associate with crazy, chaotic people in a positive way. It's bringing people together who have these struggles, and instead of just avoiding them and forgetting about them through excess consumption, through addictive behaviours, it's about confronting them, facing them together as a community. And so I want to touch on quickly, before I finish, the difference between the art that I made in chaos and the art that I made in recovery, or the art that I continue to make in recovery. And truthfully, a lot of the themes that I cover in my art now are the same. They are about my own struggles with being a human, is what it means to be human, about addiction, about mental health, about these kind of big themes, classical stories and tales from religious texts that sort of, speak to a bigger narrative, and the great archetypes from our own human history. But now that I'm in recovery and I'm not chasing this party lifestyle, I just have much more focus. I have much more intention with what I'm doing. Whereas before, the same metaphor can be used. I talked about Amy Winehouse being 1 in 10,000, and I think for me, the artwork that I created in active addiction was also a bit of a lottery. It was like, perhaps 1 in 100 pieces just by chance would be really, really successful in some way. And now I feel like, because I have this structure, I have community, I have a sense of purpose, 100 out of 100 pieces are not successful, and that's the nature of being a creative person. We have to churn out a lot of bad stuff as well to get to the good stuff, but I know that I can definitely create more successful pieces now that I'm in recovery. And so that's just a massive difference for me. I'm much more intentional, much more clear-headed, and I don't think that we need chaos to be successful creative people. And that's really the message of this video. Let that myth go, let it die. It should have died a long time ago, but I still see it today. There's something about the creative lifestyle that enables negative behaviours. And I do think they go hand in hand in a lot of ways. And like I said, I want to bring people together and connect them positively, and instead of connecting them negatively through sex, drugs and rock and roll. It's about connection, it's about love, it's about honesty and open-mindedness and sharing where we're at. So if it's resonated with you, as always, let me know. And something to think about today is, are you living your life as though you are the action hero of a film made about a tortured artist? Because I used to be, And now I can see how crazy that was looking back, but hindsight is a beautiful thing. Yeah, let me know, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.